We are taught that the worst effects of capitalism were mitigated by the growing actions of the increasing labor movement in America and abroad at the time. That's not the case. If you look at what the unions were talking about in their contemporary works, they were very, very frustrated by their inability to implement either legally or socially any of the things they were fighting for. There would be laws passed to limit the number of hours a person can be asked to work, but those laws would never be enforced. And the unions would point to this as an example of how the corporations are running the government. Time after time, when they fought for increased improvements, it was either a function of market forces or they got things passed, but those things never got implemented.
Not to mention they didn't have any of the federal protections they later got. They couldn't keep non-union members out. They couldn't intimidate people. They couldn't force people to pay union dues who didn't want to pay them. So the unions were a non-factor. And yet, the standard of living of workers throughout the Industrial Revolution continued to rise. And into the 20th century, going into the 1920s, when around the world people were talking about the 8-hour day, American workers got the 8-hour day before their much more heavily unionized counterparts in Europe got it, and they earned higher wages than their much more heavily unionized counterparts in Europe did. Even at its height, unionism in the United States peaked at about 1/3 of American workers being in labor unions, just a third. We have to remember that, of course, there's no non-arbitrary stopping point for improving working conditions. Everybody would love to have 4-hour massages during the day. Everybody would love to have a view of Niagara Falls. But you have to ask yourself, can the economy support this? Do we have enough wealth to support this? There's no non-arbitrary answer to that question. Well, as a matter of fact, here's a kind of case study showing that this is the process by which improvements happen. A professor named Ben Powell actually bothered to go to Guatemala and interview people who were working in terrible conditions. And he asked them, if you had a choice where you could get more vacation time or somewhat better working conditions, but it came at the expense of a slight decrease in your pay, would you take it? And 90+%, no matter what the thing he was offering them was, 90+% of the people said, I just want the money. I don't want you to tell me that I should have this or that. I would rather just have the money.
But we're still missing the broader point of the Industrial Revolution, which is the kids working in the factories. You have to take that bathwater, but you're also taking that baby who's working at age 2. What about the children, Tom? Won't you please think of the children?
Nobody wants children working. Nobody in his right mind wants that.
Well, what about Ayn Rand?
Michael, let's talk about those kids you're concerned about. There's a massive population explosion going on in Britain at the time, and yet even with all that, people are still earning more. Those kids are doing better. The standard of living is improving. At the same time, kids in India and China are starving because there were population increases in those places too, but those places did not undergo an industrial revolution.